So if you look at the relations between Taiwan and China, China has been threatening Taiwan, and the threat seems to be more serious than before. In real life world, there's not a black and white situation, but we are very concerned that China is going to launch a war against Taiwan at some point, even though the threat may not be imminent at this point, but there might be some conditions that China may use force against Taiwan.
Hi, right, folks. Welcome back. Jesus, that guy looked spooked, didn't he? That's the Taiwanese foreign minister. Now, listen, that guy. The people of Taiwan are actually Chinese. Remember that. So when they're talking that way, just like the people of Hong Kong warned us, they know. They've got people in China, the mainland, telling them this is what's happening. So and so is saying this. So never mind the fact that this says here, Taiwan has said it is preparing for war with China as Beijing deployed 129 warplanes into its airspace in just 3 days. That's like an exercise, that's like practice. Says the chilling warning came after the record number of Chinese aircraft buzzed the island, while official Chinese media, because they don't have BBC and Channel 4, they have communist propaganda. So when their news feeds say things like China has called for Taiwan to be crushed, that's what the gangsters in the Chinese Communist Party, that's what they've told them to say. That's obvious, isn't it? So obviously what they're doing is they're getting ready to attack the air defence systems of Taiwan, the missile defence systems. And if they're static systems, well, the Chinese now know where they all are. And they'll just completely overrun that island in terms of numbers. I mean, the Taiwanese Air Force, I believe, have F-15s, F-16s. They've got a lot of good stuff, but numbers alone means that they'll not be able to survive for very long. Because if the Chinese decide that they're going to take the island, then the first thing they're going to go for is air superiority for their troops to land. And they're so close to the Taiwanese island that they can just across the water, very close to the island, the mainland. So very very quickly they'll have thousands upon thousands of Marines, paratroopers, whatever on that island, fighting with the Taiwanese army. And the Taiwanese army can't beat China. Now America today, as far as I know, has reiterated in quite strong terms that it will defend China, it will defend Taiwan if it's attacked by China, and they've sort of condemned the military provocation of China. So let's see where it goes. What could possibly happen? Well, at the moment the world is sort of still suffering from this illness that came apparently, allegedly, from China, strangely enough. Strange, isn't it? We've got that. And what kind of history have we got so far to look on? I mean, are they likely to do it? Well, they invaded Tibet and crushed the people of Tibet. The Dalai Lama had to flee the country. There's a region that's apparently, it's always in the news, it's where Uyghur Muslims live. Well, they've got those people, a lot of these people, in internment camps. They have built a security CCTV facial recognition system throughout the entire country, so everybody's face is recognised. If you move anywhere, they'll know exactly where you are. And by the way, they've done that in China itself. And most recently, you can't forget what they did in Hong Kong. Don't forget, there was all this talk of, Britain will take 2,000 people, they can escape, then all of a sudden China moved in, and you've not heard another thing, have you? Have you heard anything else? No. Because all these students are all in dark prisons in China. All these business owners that spoke up, they're in dark prisons in China. They're in chains. They're being tortured, abused. Right? Men and women. That's China. So, the way I look at it, if you go to a casino there, you'll find a lot of Chinese people in there gambling. So they do like gambling. They don't always win though. And sometimes you have to stand up to a bully. It's not like an isolated incident, is it? Tibet, the Uyghurs, other regions, and then Hong Kong, and now Taiwan. Do they think it's an opportune time because we're all suffering from this virus? See, that's the gamble. Like Russian roulette, really. They do have quite a good relationship with Russia, and that, I don't want any conflict with Russia. Russia is a completely different animal, and I have a lot of respect for Russia, the Russian people, and what they've done and what they've been through. And I don't imagine the leadership, whomever is leading the country, Putin or whomever, would want to get involved in a war over Taiwan. It's not going to happen. They might give them moral support, but they won't give them military support. So it really comes down to what kind of assets are in the area, American assets. I would imagine, the South China Sea, around Taiwan, around China, has more nuclear submarines than anywhere else in the world. American, British, Chinese, because they've got a few. I think they've got about 90. 90 subs. I don't know if they're all nuclear weapon carrying. Aircraft carriers, they've got, well, I think they've got 3 or 4. I know they bought one from Russia. It was in Ukraine. They towed it all the way to China because it had its propulsion system taken out of it. And then it sort of started developing. So I think they've developed type 2, 3 and 4. So they may have 4. They've got a lot of Russian kit for launching their aircraft. In fact, the aircraft they were supposed to be using on these aircraft carriers was going to be bought from Russia. Sukhoi aircraft carrier launched Sukhois, but just like this aircraft here, see this aircraft in this picture, that's very similar to a Russian Sukhoi, but it's actually called a J-16, strangely enough. Well, another coincidence is that the Chinese suddenly developed another one called a J-15 that looked very similar to the Sukhoi they were going to buy off the Russians. You know what I'm saying? You see the pattern here? Right? They imitate and copy everything. They steal everything. Right? Say they've got 4. I know that America has 20. I don't know how many's in that region, but there must be an awful lot, and there will be motoring towards it as we speak. But there is quite a, I think the 5th fleet's there. So there's at least 3 aircraft carriers, American aircraft carriers in there, in the area. And if anything happens, I would imagine that the targets will be the Chinese aircraft carriers. I think the Americans would want to do as much damage as they can. I don't know if there would be a declaration of war, do you think so? I don't know. I think they would just start attacking their assets. They would go for the Chinese aircraft carriers, either submarine-based attacks. I would imagine it would be submarine-based attacks, because they'll be shadowed wherever they are. Because the satellites, you'll not get a Pearl Harbor now, satellites watch everything. These islands in Dubai, I think they're called the Palm Islands, where these mad princes have built luxury houses and things like that. Like David Beckham's got a house there, and so many celebrities have got houses there. You can't go out during the day because it's like 300 degrees centigrade. It's like the desert. You can only go out after 6 o'clock at night, Anyway, never mind that, but I'm rambling. But well, the Chinese have done a similar thing to that, only they've not built luxury homes on it. They've put missile defence systems on them. I would imagine that would be a big target. The Americans would love to flatten that, because that really annoys the life out of everybody, those islands that they created there. So I think the aircraft carriers, the islands, the artificial islands would be wiped out, and then they would start having a go at the so-called Chinese air superiority over Taiwan. Of course, the island of Taiwan would be taken. Cannot take it back. But as far as the economy of the island, it would die. The minute Chinese troops land on that island, the economy dies. Assets, worldwide assets, will be frozen. Right? Chinese assets worldwide will be frozen. Nobody will do any business, maybe aside from Russia, but I mean, nobody will do business with China. You know, there will be an embargo that the world has never seen before placed on China. There'll be no more gigantic container ships arriving in harbours throughout the world, because they'll all be blocking the Suez Canal. No, seriously, but that'll finish. You'll no longer be able to get shit on eBay for China. That's not a bad thing, really, is it? But how that ends, how it starts, we know how it will start. How it ends is the mystery. Does it escalate? Does China start gambling and start firing land-based missiles at American assets, offshore assets? They might do. But then they invite, see, that's the gamble, right? Then they invite low-yield tactical battlefield weapons. Nuclear weapons. Because remember, America's used them and they'll use them again. See, there's two tiers, isn't there, of nuclear weapons these days. You've maybe got three tiers. You've maybe got the suitcase nuclear device that they've got, right? Then you've got the battlefield, low-yield battlefield nuclear weapons. Now you can fire a nuclear shell from an artillery piece, or a low-yield weapon on a Tomahawk missile, cruise missile. So you launch a missile, a land-based missile, at an American asset, and if you destroy an asset, say an aircraft carrier, you'll suddenly find that that base will disappear in a nuclear blast. They'll not send in conventional Tomahawks because it'll not do enough damage. They'll need to deter another attack like that. So what they'll do is they'll level a nuclear blast as a warning. Your assets can come out to us, but you don't fire anything from your mainland at us. And if China tried to fire anything on the American mainland, they would suddenly find that it would escalate to ICBM, and that would be a city. So that's where it's going. That's where it could go. There's a movie in that, isn't there? You know, if the Chinese didn't own Hollywood, there would be a movie in that. Of course, if there's a war with China, they lose everything. They're no longer in control of Hollywood. All those companies that they bought would suddenly be gone. Americans would love that. Then they'd start making movies about attacking China. Because at the moment you're not allowed to make movies about attacking China. You don't get funding for the movie. Anyway, listen. Let us know in the comments what you think. Is it going to happen or not? Because we have been ranting here for, how many minutes is that? 15 minutes. Listen, if you like the content, hit the like button, share and subscribe, because that's all I've got to say about that. Peace out. How dare you!